Welcome to the Signature Sip Podcast, a real estate podcast with myself, Jon Steingraber, and my beautiful wife, Michelle Pais. Cheers to the beginning of Signature Sip. I feel like now we're back and we have a lot to give. We have a lot to offer.
Till this day, by the way, I have to say, the excitement happens the second I land the deal, not when I get paid. It's the art of the deal, landing that.
Right, it's the chase. Not only are we going to be giving a lot of wisdom and knowledge and experiences and stories, but we're going to bring on guests.
I bartended, babe, so something that you and I have in common, even though...
Babe, you bartended for how long?
3 months.
A day or two?
It's a podcast.
So you were like eating a tosta mista in Emily's bakery.
I think I was having a pastel de nata.
Okay, pastel de nata.
And a galão.
And if you're a realtor, if you're an investor, you're going to want to subscribe to this podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back. Michelle and Jon here. We made it to podcast number 2. Hey, babe.
That means we're going to make it to number 100.
Is that the goal? 100?
No, more than that. But I think they say once you make it to 100, you have a podcast.
Okay.
Until then, you can't like really, a lot of people fall off after a few weeks or a few episodes, right?
Yeah, well,
we did that last time. I don't know how many we did. Joe, how many did we do last time?
The Michelle and Jon show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like over 20.
We did like 20.
Yeah, but then COVID happened, right? Then that's around that time too. That happened, and then I got pregnant, and you know how that goes.
Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for listening in here. What do you want to start off with, babe?
Why don't we start off with signature news? Let's give the listeners some updates onto what's happening with Signature Realty, and
Well, by the end of the year, we're gonna have 3 of our big renovations done, right? So Short Hills, Red Bank, and Ridgewood. So we're gonna be making a big announcement about that. So if you're in Bergen, Essex, or Monmouth County, we are coming to a town near you.
Yeah, we love the process of the renovation, especially with their offices, right? It's just Short Hills is going to be hot.
Short Hills is going to be the nicest building in all of Short Hills.
Yeah, for sure. And we're not just going to have a real estate office. There's just a couple of other exciting things that we're going to have.
Pais Live. It's going to be fun.
Cafe. Yeah, we're excited about that.
That's good. And we're announcing our big announcement in January.
Mm-hmm.
So that's coming. Wait. I don't know when this episode's going to go live, but I imagine it's going to be closer to that.
Yeah.
So.
What else is going on with Signature?
We're growing. We're down 11%, but we're doing better than the rest of the industry from year to year because the industry is down like 30%. Mm-hmm. So we did all our numbers the other day with the leadership team, and we're down 11%. So we're not. We're up in certain areas, like we're up on listings. So more of our agents are doing listings than last year, and less are doing buyer transactions. But overall transaction count, we're down 11%. Yeah,
but that's not bad. I think, like you said, the industry as a whole is down at least 25-30%. More.
No, it's not horrible, and it's just like if you're watching this and you're an agent and you're down, like a lot of people are down. It's not a reason to be down. Mm-hmm. Obviously we want to push, but this is temporary. Right. We're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to build. And, now's the time to put in the work, because if everything's always 90 or 100 days out, right? Whatever work you put in now, it'll show up in 90 to 100 days. So what we're experiencing right now is a result of our last 90 to 100 days of actions that we've taken. So,
and it's a tough market. It's a very tough market. I am starting to see it turn around. Yeah. Personally, I can tell you that this is probably one of the worst years that I've had personally, just because of the lack of inventory and interest rates and everything happening. What do you mean it's the worst? Years? No, the worst. Okay, so the worst year.
This is not your worst year at all.
I think since I started the team.
No, probably. I think this is the first time that you probably declined versus went up.
That's what I meant.
That's the only.
That's why I have you in my life, because you finish my sentences and you know exactly what I'm thinking. That's exactly what I meant to say. It's the first year of a decline,
right?
Which I am not used to, nor do I like. Right.
Well, we've been on a huge run.
That's right. Yeah.
So.
But it's okay. I think also part of this, a lot of people get afraid of these things, right? Mm-hmm. If you're an agent women out there, I'm sure you can relate to this, that your business is doing so well, and year after year, you're increasing it. In most cases, you're just doing better. And then all of a sudden you have a year where you actually, it's not your best year, and you freak out. You don't know what to do. You're contemplating on leaving the business, starting something new. You just, all these emotions and thoughts go through your head. And you know what? I say take it, embrace it.
Right, that's normal.
It's normal, but embrace it. It's time to maybe work on the business. Take time for yourself. I took a little bit of a hiatus, took about 3 months off in the summer. I mean, I did a little bit of work, but I was still working, but not nearly as, not nearly as much as I normally do. And it just gave me time to reflect. I started implementing things into my business that I don't think I ever would have if I kept, running this rat race. One of the things that I did differently, which, believe it or not, for the past 20 years, I have never, ever had a CRM. Let me say that again. I have never had a CRM, which is crazy operating at this level. We've been the top team in the state for medium-sized team category for volume for 5 years in a row, and I have never had a CRM. So one thing I did this year was implement Follow Up Boss, which
sponsored by Follow Up Boss.
It's actually
we'll
not,
be back for our break.
Follow Up Boss, my CRM of choice, and it's been life-changing. Let me tell you, it's been life-changing. Now, here's what I say. If the market wasn't where it was, and if I didn't take the time off, then I never would have invested the time into, again, just building the business. So I'm grateful for that.
So what you're telling people is like, now production's a little low.
Yeah,
take advantage of this opportunity to work on yourself, on your business.
Absolutely.
Right? And implement those projects and systems that you've been thinking and talking about and saying you were going to do, but you put them off because you were so busy at buyer appointments and listing appointments.
That's right.
Right? Last year, everybody was super busy.
Super busy.
Now is a good time to do that. And look, let the bad times be the best times.
I love that.
Right? Let the bad times, you look back later, look back on the bad times and say, those were the best times because that's when I pivoted. That's when I was able to do this. That's when I was able to hire this person or put this into place, just like you just said. And
love that.
It's important. And that's what we do at Signature. Mm-hmm. Like right now, we are so excited. Mm-hmm. Like we're down and we're like, we're not like,
yes, we're down.
No, we're not mad about it. We're just like, it's fine. We're going to get through this, and, these are the things that we're going to do. And when everything's going great, you don't look at all the mistakes that you're making. You don't look at all the flaws. You don't look at all the failures. When people are leaving the business, we've had quite a few agents leave the business.
Completely.
Right? We've had some agents go to other brokerages, and every time that happens, right, we have an exit interview and we get feedback, and it's an opportunity for us to get better.
Love that.
So we don't look at things as a negative, right? We always look at how can we learn from this? How can we get better? Because at the end of the day, it's part of business. Like if you're not okay with the ups and downs, then don't be in business.
It's true.
Right? Go and do something else and let somebody else be the business owner if you're not going to be okay with it.
That's right. And not everybody is meant to be a business owner, and that's okay. And like I said this before, owning a business is not the American dream. So it's not, it's not, and
it's winning the lottery. No, you gotta get that financial education and that business education. And that's what we're talking about today. Today we're going to talk about, the mistakes that we've made, and how we overcame, or what did we learn from that, and how other people can learn from our mistakes. Because, you guys might have heard the acronym OPM, right? Other people's money in real estate, right? We borrow other people's money, we buy a house, we fix it up, we sell it, we make a profit. Well, in business, there's OPE, right? Other people's experience, right? And leveraging other people's experience can be one of the most valuable things that you can do. And what does that mean? That's leverage. Just like when you're borrowing money, right? We're leveraging the bank. We're leveraging other people's money. Well, you want to leverage other people's experience, right? So we learn from our mistakes and we grow, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
And I actually wanted to ask you, because obviously we both made mistakes, a lot of mistakes, right? Throughout our journey. Share with me, share with our viewers, with our listeners, some mistakes that you've made and that you can talk about it and how you were able to overcome that.
Yeah, so we'll talk about like different, categories, right? So I think one of the biggest mistakes that I made at, in my flipping business, if I were to talk about my flipping business, I would say one of the biggest mistakes that I made was waiting so long to change my business model, right? When I looked back at my business model, which this is how the 24-hour flip business model idea came about. When I looked at my business model, I was so frustrated. I was like, man, this takes forever to renovate a house. This takes forever, to line up the contractors and schedule the contractors and do all this. And I looked back at the portfolio of properties that I had flipped and I go, which ones did I make the most money? Which ones did I make the least money? And where are the patterns? And the patterns were, the ones that I held the longest were the ones that I lost the most money on.
Crazy.
And sometimes you think, well, if it's a bigger renovation, it's a bigger profit, right? If it's a shittier house, right, it's a bigger profit, right? If I have to do an addition to it, it's so bad that the functional layout is so bad that I need to do an addition to this house, I'm definitely going to make a lot more money, right? I'm going to make 6 figures in that. And for me...
And that's how the average person thinks, by the way, the average investor. It's exactly what you're saying.
Probably, yeah. I mean, the more that I do, the better it is. And the reality of it is when you really have a combination between all of your holding costs, all of your financing costs, the risk, that you take on when you're holding a property for longer in the market, not being able to predict interest rates, not being able to predict if the market's going up or down, and overall just the liability of owning the property for many, many months and letting other people kind of control the timeline with their schedule. Oh, contractor can't make it back because they got another job. Meanwhile, they're making money or losing money, right? It could be $200-$300 a day that you're costing you. So the biggest mistake was like waiting so long to challenge that, right? Because the business is so archaic. And it's like, well, that's what it is, right? You buy a house, you fix it up, it takes 6 months, and then you put it on the market, it takes another 2 months, and that's what flipping is. And that's not what flipping is, right? It comes down to man hours, and that's what we figured out. We audited, right, the portfolio of properties, which are the ones that we made these decisions on, how much did we make on it compared to the ones that, we flipped the fastest and we did the least amount of work to, or we did the work the fastest to. And those were the ones that we made the most profit on. So, whatever business you're in, if you're an agent, if you're a broker, if you're an investor, if you're a pizzeria owner, right? Audit your experience journey, audit your profit and loss, audit your expenses, look at your profit destroyers, right? Look at where are you losing money. And for me, my profit destroyers were holding costs, tax and insurance, the interest that I was paying on money, right? Some people use, very, very expensive capital. I was talking to somebody the other day and he's like, yeah, I borrow money at 15% and 3 points.
15%?
15%.
And 3 points?
And 3 points.
Wow.
Right? So I was like, how do you make money? Wow. So look at your profit destroyers and say, okay, how can I get that 15 down to 10? Wow. Right? Yeah. Or at least 12 and save 3%. Or how can I get the 3 points down to 1.5? Or lower, depending on what you're doing. And get the skills and the education and the training to work on yourself to solve for these issues and do those audits. And I think anybody can learn from that in everything. Because, it's that old quote that they say, right? You do the same thing over and over again, and that's the definition of, expecting the same result. That's the definition of insanity. Mm-hmm. But we all do that shit. Mm-hmm. Like we do the same thing over and over again, right? Expecting a different result. And that's insane to think that that's like, things are not going to change if you don't change. Jim Rohn says it best. If you change, things will change. If you don't change, things will not change. Right?
So you solved for that.
Clearly. Yeah, we solved for that. We said, let's do something crazy. Let's renovate a house in 24 hours. Mm-hmm. I mean, I went to the extreme and we did that, and then we, recorded a sizzle and we did a TV show and all that. But
and by the way, I just have to say, it was real. What you saw, it was 2 12-hour days. So we actually, you did it. I mean, it's real. A lot of people, we get so much feedback and pushback. Oh, there's no way this show is real. No way.
I mean, they can see it. It's recorded.
But it's real. I mean, it's man hours, like you said, 60.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that when Steve's on.
Yeah. We're Steve.
Our next episode is 𝗵𝒄𝒄𝒃, producer at 24-Hour Flip. Let's change how we're doing it, right? Let's be better. Let's communicate more. Let's do all those things, right? And if we do more of that, you're going to have more success.
Yeah.
Right?
What other mistakes can people learn from that you've done, and now you can talk about it? So
why don't you share one?
In brokerage, I mean,
you
building
share
a
one.
brokerage. I'm asking you the question now. I mean, I'm
now you're interviewing me. I'm the guest.
Just building the brokerage. I mean, listen, you and the team have obviously did a tremendous job, and you're obviously still working on it. But I think to everyone out there that's contemplating on going on your own and opening up your own shop, this is for them.
Yeah,
right?
I say do it. I say do it. Prove it to yourself that you can do it. The reason I say that is because sometimes people think it's greener on the other side. Mm-hmm. And the grass is greener where you water it, right? So if you're not watering the grass where you are, and you don't have that mindset, you don't have that mentality, and you're always thinking about, I'm going to go there, I'm going to start my own thing, right? I'm not going to be able to fix whatever is going on here. It's out of my hands. Then do it, and you did that. Mm-hmm. And that's great. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's for everyone, but they'll learn that. I think people will learn how hard the business is. Yeah. But I'm not, we want everybody to win regardless. If you win with us, you win with us, right? If you don't win with us and you win somewhere else, that's fine too. Like, we want you to win, right? Because this is much bigger. There's enough money for everybody to go around. I know what we're building is something really special. And we have sometimes people that'll leave at Signature Realty and then they'll come back, right? Because they're like, man, I didn't know what I had. Why? Because we used to hire, not anymore, we used to hire brand new agents. And people would come to Signature Realty and they didn't know what it was like anywhere else, right? Their first experiences at Signature Realty. It's like your first boyfriend or girlfriend, right? You don't know if it's good or if it's bad. And then you're like, well, I got to meet other people.
I got to experiment.
Right, I got to experiment.
Then you realize that it's... The grass is just as yellow.
No, and it's not, there's no right or wrong answer. It's your journey, and whatever your heart tells you to do, go for it, but have the guts to do it, right? And don't compare, right? There's something called the comparison trap, right? Because sometimes people are counting your money versus counting their own money. And there's this comparison trap. They compare themselves to other people, but they're not comparing
their work ethic.
They're not comparing everything. They're just like, oh, this is the result this person gets. I'm the same age. We started in the same time, or they started after me and now they're ahead. Mm-hmm. Okay, but like what did they do versus what did you do? Right. Are you investing what they're investing per month in marketing? Right. Are you doing what they're doing on a daily basis? Are you putting in the hours? Or are you taking the risks? Or are you making the videos? Or are you investing in employees and team members? And I can't say, I can't compare myself to one of the bigger companies that have grown to, 50,000 agents, because I didn't do what they did. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go and raise money and run at a loss. I want to be a profitable business throughout the whole process, right? Because that's what I think it's, a lot of people don't understand that. They don't understand that profitability at the end of the day, somebody can have 1 million agents. Doesn't mean they're profitable. It doesn't mean they're going to be around forever. So, in your life, in your business, you can look at somebody else and be like, oh, they're doing a lot better, but what's their P&L look like? Right? What's their life look like? I mean, they could be in shambles, getting divorced, being completely depressed and not in a good situation. And you think that they're doing great, and you're comparing your life that you think is not as good. And that's just a lack of perspective and a lack of gratitude, right? If you have gratitude in your life and you say, I'm going to look in the mirror and I'm going to hold myself accountable, and I'm going to be better, and I'm going to do better. And you push forward and you water the grass where you're at, the grass will be green and you will be happy,
That story sounds very familiar.
With what?
What you just said. I felt like you've said this last couple of days. I'm like reminiscing. But you didn't answer the question. What, growing the brokerage, what do you say was one of your biggest mistakes? Like, if you can go back now, if you knew what you knew back then, what would you have done differently?
So we were pretty conceited when we first started. Okay. What I mean by that is I thought, okay, with my training capabilities, with my knowledge that I'm bringing to the table, with the team that I'm going to build, I'm going to be able to just train people and show them exactly what they have to do, and they're going to do it. And then they're all going to be successful, and we're going to whoop everybody's ass.
Are you referring to agents?
Yeah.
Training of agents? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
I thought that if you put a training program in place that's top notch, and you work with those agents and you give them that information and you do it, that everybody's going to be successful.
Okay.
And what I learned is that the most important thing is mindset, right? The most important thing is working on mindset and working on the personal development side, because you can have all the how-tos in the world, but the how-to is not always the solution, right? It's your psychology, right? Tony Robbins says it's 80% psychology, 20% mechanics, right? 20% how-to. So somebody could not know anything, but their mindset is right, and they're a go-getter, and they're running and gunning, and they're not getting in their own way, and they're, they have this fire, this burning desire to succeed, and they go out and do it, and they don't even know what the hell they're doing, but they're succeeding.
Yeah.
Right? They don't even have the how-to yet.
And
then they go learning as they go, because they're doing. And then you have other people that, they need to learn everything before they do anything, right? I need to know everything about how to do a podcast before we get a podcast going. And I need to know how to do everything before I do this. And everything needs to be perfect, and every I needs to be done, and every T needs to be crossed. A lot of those people don't end up succeeding because doing is more important than knowing, right? Because doing is knowing, right? When you do it, that's when you really know it. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that we made, that we thought that just focusing on the practical how-to, hey, this is the letter that you send out. This is who you send it to. This is the envelope that you use. This is the marker color that you use. And this is exactly what you say in the letter. And this is how you find the people to send it to. And you do exactly step by step. And then you do all that. And then you're going to get calls, and you're going to set up an appointment, and this is how you present, and here's your 5-step listing process. And it's more than that, because sometimes people don't get to even sending out the letter.
Right.
Because of the mindset piece. So I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I learned. And now at Signature, we don't just focus on the how-to, right? We focus on the mindset piece of it and how to, push forward, because it doesn't matter where you are. And you know this, right? You could be at the top of your game making millions of dollars a year, and there's still things you can learn.
Always.
Right? And not just how-tos, but I mean like growth-wise, personal development. So if you're a business owner, you have a team, and you're growing, and you're trying to inspire people and inspire people to take action and do things, focus on the mindset.
Mindset's so important.
Focus on the personal development. Focus on working on them just becoming a better version of themselves versus just all the how-to stuff. Because you can't train your way to success, right? Like you can't train your way to, being a top producer. You have to have the discipline, and to have the discipline, you have to have the mindset. Because it's not just knowing what to do, it's doing it.
I never knew that, by the way. You never mentioned that to me, as far as the whole conceited thing, that you thought doing this, like you almost thought, okay, if you have a blueprint and if you teach everyone how to, then all of a sudden, yeah, that's interesting that you said that. See, I am actually the opposite. I believe you can be in the same room and teach the same thing to, 5 different people, and not all of them are going to do it.
And that's true.
Yeah.
We were overconfident in how much we thought people were going to just take the information and run, but it comes down to more than that.
Yeah.
And if you want to succeed, like you have to work on everything, right? Everything from unteaching a lot of concepts, right? I was lucky enough that I dropped out of college and I started reading books, and that was my curriculum. I made my own curriculum, right? I read a bunch of books, and those books taught me about, investing in yourself. And it's not about the cost of things. Like if you tell somebody, hey, invest $10,000 in this, right? Do these mailers, do this. They don't look at the return on investment. A lot of times they're not looking about, well, what am I going to get from that? That doesn't matter, right? to them. What matters to them is the cost. It's like, well, this is $10,000. I can't spend that. But that's the difference between you and a lot of agents that I saw. Like, you've always taken a portion of your money and reinvested it back.
Always.
And that's allowed you to grow. Like, take away all the investments that you made.
I would not be where I'm at, not even close.
And you wouldn't have a brand.
No, not at all.
You've branded yourself through doing marketing and investing money in advertising. And it wasn't just you. And you've taken risks and you've done things, you know, like going on a TV show and doing all these things that, you know, it's vulnerable to do that, right? It's not easy, and it takes a lot of time away from other things.
Yeah. Well,
so
I actually, I'll be honest, I actually, I learned a lot of that from you too, because before you, I've always invested. I've always taken, you know, a portion of my every check, and I reinvested it back into the business. I've always done that, but I think, you know, when I went to that next level is when you, I think it was for my birthday or anniversary or something. We had started dating, and you said you gifted me that Tony Robbins,
the business mastery
event. And that was the greatest gift. I mean, you've gotten me beautiful gifts throughout the years, but I have to say the most beautiful and the most valuable gift was that gift of education. It was a 7-day.
No, 5-day.
Was it we were probably there.
But we were there till friggin' 2 o'clock in the morning every day.
It was exhausting. It was but I learned so much about business and mindset. And it was from that event that that's when things started to change. Like, I started thinking of
like a business owner.
Like a business, right?
Or more like a business owner.
Like a business owner instead of such a busy owner. At the time, I was doing it all. I was, you know, I was the operator. I was the secretary. I was the broker. I was the accountant. I was the marketer. I mean, I wore a lot of hats. But walking away from that, I learned how to fire myself and hire and invest in the right people. And that's when my business started to grow. And it also, you know, you had given me the confidence to do that. I think this is why it's important, I think, to also have the right partner in your life, because I think most people, you know, are just like what you said. You know, what's the investment? How much is it going to cost? I mean, how many relationships are out there where one spouse is an agent, and I know this firsthand because I had a team member on my team who's, you know, her husband was in finance, and she was an agent, and she wanted to invest in her business, and her husband was the one that was paying the bills, and he was just like, I can't do this. How? Why? This is crazy. You know, what's the return on investment? So being able to have that partner that, you know, that can support you, and that's so important, because I don't know if I would have had the confidence to, you know, go out there and just really invest in the business. And today I say it with such confidence. You know, you have to, the best investment you can make is in yourself. Everyone's always looking at, you know, what is the safest investment or the easiest investment? How am I going to...
Right, and you grew up in like a very traditional, like work hard, save your money type of house, right? Yeah. Portuguese, like to the bone, like just very conservative, right?
Extremely conservative. I mean, they still are, right? And I still am. And part of the way I am today, thankfully, I do have a very conservative side. From my family, and I appreciate that, because I'm not, you know, I'm about...
Well, you don't risk all your money, but you make strategic investments.
Right, and in real estate has always been...
where you made your money.
Where I made my money, and where I feel confident, because I understand the space. The stock market, I know nothing about the stock market. It's very volatile, and I've lost a lot of money. So it's just, that's not for me. But I always say the best investment you can make is in yourself and in your business. So when it comes to like learning from mistakes, I mean, the biggest mistake that I've learned throughout the years is just, you know, focusing on, when it comes to investing, maybe just allowing other people to make those decisions for you. Like with the stock market, for example, I was never very successful in the stock market, but I, you know, handed it to somebody that I trusted and who I think, okay, well, they know their game. So, you know, but ultimately...
The market's manipulated.
Yeah, but ultimately, you know, I wish I would have just stuck to what I know best, which is real estate, and this is what I do. And I should have had a little bit more confidence in that, and whatever, it is what it is. But I mean, there's so many.
Yeah, I remember one of the first dates that we were going on, and I booked, I was like a really nice restaurant or something, and you know, the nice restaurants that are hard to get into, right? Like they have a reservation time and you got to get there, right? And I remember just saying, like going to pick you up at your office and being like, babe, we got to go. Like we have a reservation and we're going to miss it. And you were like, I still have to enter this listing.
You always tell that story.
And I'm like,
you're like, what the fuck?
Why the fuck are you entering a listing into the MLS? Like you have to understand highest and best use.
That's right.
And then after that,
that's right.
Right, you started delegating.
That's
more.
right.
And I think that's when a lot of things shifted for you. And I learned that myself, right? Like you have to know what your strengths are, and you can produce at a much higher rate when you start delegating things that you're not good at.
Right.
Right? If you try to do everything, it's never going to work.
No.
And I think everybody needs to understand, like, it's such a broader level of education when you're a business owner, right? And it starts with, you having that mindset of, okay, I know that these are the things that I should be doing, and not getting overwhelmed by that, more so saying, okay, how do I do that, right? And then what are the consequences of that? So like hiring an assistant, a lot of people, I see it all the time. I mean, shit, we have amazing agents at Signature. Some of them making 7 figures, some of them making very high 6 figures. They don't have an assistant yet. And it's crazy because I'm like, hiring an assistant is $60,000. With your income that you make, right? That's a write-off to your business. So that's $60,000 that you don't have to pay taxes on. So if you make $60,000 on a few more listings, right? You're not going to keep 60 grand because you got to pay the federal government 37%, right? You got to pay the state of New Jersey 10%, right? So you're literally left with 53%, right? 53% of the 60,000, right? Which is like, whatever, 60, how much is that? 53% of 60,000, 30 something thousand bucks, right? So you're left with $30,000 about, instead of hiring an assistant. If you hire an assistant, she doesn't cost you $60,000 or he doesn't cost you $60,000. What does he cost you? 30 something thousand. Why? Because you get to write that off and you save the tax money. So for an extra $2,500 extra per month, you can have somebody that you delegate all this stuff to. And they just don't, that knowledge is not taught anywhere. It's not taught in the real estate class.
It's not.
Right? It's not taught, and it's not taught in school.
No.
They want us ignorant to a lot of these things, so we don't know. So that's why you got to surround yourself with people that understand this stuff so you can grow. And then the mindset piece. It's one thing is knowing that, and another thing is pulling the trigger and saying, okay, I'm going to do it. And you've done that in a pretty awesome way, right? You've been able to grow the team.
But I was that person though, babe. Like I was that person. I was that person that, the assistant and like this was going to cost me $60,000 or $70,000, or at the time it was $50,000. I'm like, oh, that's $50,000. How many listings do I have to get to pay for an assistant? So and that's where that mindset came in, right? Too, I had the wrong mindset because listen, there was no roadmap to success. No one taught me like this is what it's going to look like, and along the way you're going to have to do this, this, and this, and this, and that's something that wasn't taught. But thankfully there's you're teaching this, and hopefully people can learn from our mistakes. But there was no
it's
blueprint.
like, what's the ROI of that? Like, does it give you back 20 hours a week? Right? Does it, even if it takes somebody twice as long to do something than you, it took you 20 hours a week. It takes them 40 hours, right? So you pay them the 40 hours. So what? Right now you have 20 hours back, and what does that take you?
Right.
What does that give you? Does it give you more family time? What's that worth to you? Does it give you your health back? Right? Or does it give you more time to get more listings?
That's
right?
No.
Or to work on those projects that are like only you could do?
That's right. And so another big mistake that in my business is the doing it all. Like the biggest mistake I think is that I was that person again that had all those hats. I did it all on myself. What happened?
I'm going to do it the best that I can.
No one can do it better than me, right? that syndrome. Like no one can do it better than me. And guess what? The second I started to fire myself and to hire other people, those people that I hired actually did a much better job than I did.
Because they only have one hat.
Exactly. And even today, when I go on appointments and people are sitting in front of me and they're like, Michelle, we're going to have you, right? And only you. And I'm like, you don't want only me. You don't, because the people that I have in place are going to do a much better job than I am. And that's why we have the 5-star reviews. That's why we have the excellent customer service. And we teach this at Signature too, how to become, business owners, not just, an agent, and how to hire people, how to grow your business, how to build a foundation.
And we've put some resources in place for them to not have to hire employees. They can hire contractors that are companies that do these services for them.
That's right.
At a much lower number.
That's another thing I learned. Biggest mistake, right? Hiring, people that you're paying them such a high salary when someone that, from outside of the area will do it at a much lower cost. And I thought you had to be in the office. Another mistake that I have a lot of mistakes, guys. Look, they're just coming at me right now. But one of the mistakes I felt like you have to be in an office. I have to see you every single day for the job to get done. And I think COVID taught me otherwise, that you can hire people virtually. People can work from home.
Sometimes people work better like being happier,
yeah.
right? And not having to spend 2
That's
hours
right.
commuting and not having to spend all this time doing X, Y, Z.
Yeah. So now fast forward, this is just part of like the growth and the maturity and the topic today is about mistakes, but today when I start on any new projects, I'm always thinking, okay, who can I hire to help me fulfill that versus 10 years ago? I'm like, okay, how do I fit enough hours in my schedule to do it myself? So it's that mindset that you were just talking about. You have to have that right mindset. And obviously learning to put people in place and delegating and we can go on and on and on. I know I can about mistakes in the business. I think another big mistake was just not, picking the right brokerage or surround yourself with the right people. I think if I knew today what I knew back then, I would have made a lot of different choices. And one of the other things that I probably would have done differently is I would have stayed true to myself and focus on what it was that I really wanted to do. I think in the beginning of my career, I was all things to all people. I was trying to be Michelle Pais, I have this persona of this is, whatever you want me to be, I'll be. I was almost like a puppet. And I just wasn't happy and I wasn't true to myself. And I think once I really started to be comfortable and confident in my own skin and really just went after the ideal client and who I wanted to service is when things started to change as well. Because I was doing things that I love to do versus just trying to,
hustle to make more money.
In the very beginning, I remember one thing I really never loved doing was just working with buyers. Like I was never that agent that was excited about working with buyers. Why? Because I get lost in my backyard. Like, you guys, you don't understand. I still use Google Maps to get from my office to my house. And Jon too, you too, babe. We're the same in that way. So back then you'd have to use MapQuest, and you have no idea. I would always get lost on these appointments. So
it's like 100 years old.
No, but I would
I would pull out a map.
I did. I would pull it, and I would get lost every time. And then if somebody wanted to see 5 houses, I would have to figure out, okay, this is the route. It never ended up being the same route, and I would just get frustrated and tired. And that was why I never liked working with buyers, because of MapQuest.
You agents have no idea how easy you have it now with the
You
GP.
guys have
Before
no idea.
we had this book, and we would open the book.
And
You gotta get someone that's 80 on here.
Oh my God! It was a traveling, and
Remember
I'm just
those
not
days
good.
when there was no MLS?
I was not. No.
Beeper and it would go off.
Hey, don't age me. I mean, there's a lot of things that
I can give you a big mistake that I know that you made, if you want to talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Okay. So what did you focus on? What drove you a lot previously that something completely changed and you changed your mindset and you stopped focusing on that?
The competition?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was so focused on competition.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, I was focused on competition. But here's the thing, babe. One thing that I have to say is that, see, you weren't a part of those early days.
I wasn't.
So you don't understand all the shit and all the obstacles that were put in my way. I mean, in my office, I had people slash my tires so I wouldn't go to my appointment. I had people go to my open houses, pick up my signs and turn them around to different directions so no one would find it. People were sabotaging me because I was young, I was hungry, and I was, and they felt, they were insecure, right? And threatened. And so I had a lot of that growing up. I had a lot of knives in my bag, a tremendous amount of hate. I mean, I still have the hate, but that hate, it's what actually drove me to want to be more successful. It's like it lit this fire under my ass. So the more someone hated on me, the more I was going to prove them wrong.
So maybe it was the competition's mistake.
It was the competition is what drove me to, I think, want to do better. I was pregnant with Madison, and I remember it was a listing appointment I went on in Summit, New Jersey, and it was a beautiful home, and I was 6 or 7 months pregnant. I was competing with this other broker, and I ended up ultimately winning the business, and the seller confided in me that day that the reason they went with me was because X, Y, and Z. But by the way, this is what your competition said about you. And I got so fired up that the next day during COVID, I was up and down Springfield Avenue and Summit looking for a new office because I was just like, we're opening up an office. And that's how Summit was born, from that fire that was put under me based on what a competition has said. And throughout same thing with Westfield. Do you remember us getting a hate letter?
You got a death threat.
I got a death threat.
You got a death threat from somebody.
From an agent.
And say, stay out of our town. Westfield is not your town. Stay in Springfield.
That's right.
Blah, blah, blah.
That's
and you
right.
were like, all right. And then we went that day.
And we bought a building.
We made an offer on a building.
And we got it.
We got 11 variances approved to put our real estate office there.
That's right.
We hired Jim First, the attorney. We hired James Romenthal, the architect.
Yeah.
And a couple of other guys. We had to pull 2 tanks out of the ground.
Right. It was just, great location.
We invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in the reno. And then we opened up right across the street from the Westfield Diner on North Ave, one of the most prominent locations in Westfield.
And years later, we're one of the leading, brokerages in the area.
So if you're Michelle's competition, don't fuck with her, because she will come to your town.
But
now you're not. It's kind of like me, and I know this is kind of a weird analogy, but a long time ago, those of you that know my story, my dad killed my mom when I was 10 years old, and I learned later that he was a paranoid schizophrenic, and he ended up committing suicide in prison. And for a long time, I was motivated because when my dad did that to my mom, and then he went on and he put us in the car and he drove us into a bridge and he tried to kill us all. Like, that was his objective, to kill my mom and then kill us. I had to find a way to justify to get over that. And my justification for him doing that with my mom, I didn't know he was paranoid schizophrenic at the time, was that he gave up on life because my mom divorced him and he had drinking problems and there was a lot of problems there. And, she left him. And then she got remarried and then he killed her 2 weeks after she got remarried. So in my mind, I justified it like, he didn't hate my mom. He didn't hate us. He just gave up. And I'm going to prove to him that you could be dealt a bad hand and you could still win. And for a long time, I did it for that reason. I did it for the wrong reasons, right? Like, I did it to kind of prove my dad that doesn't matter the hand that you're dealt, you can be successful. And then after I learned that he was paranoid schizophrenic and he was having an episode, and I was just like, this is unbelievable, right? He was sick. He was a victim too. And I was able to forgive him and move on and then not do it for that reason anymore. Yeah. And I think in life we do that a lot. Like, we do things for a certain reason, right? We have a certain motivation, a certain fire, or the opposite, right? We don't have a fire because of that. And it crumbles us and it defeats us. And then you realize, like, man, I was doing all that for this reason, and that wasn't the reason that I should have been motivated. Right. And I don't do it for that reason anymore. Mm-hmm. Now I do it because I want to be the best version of myself. I want to help others, and I want to do the best that I possibly can, not to prove somebody wrong, or to prove that I'm better, or to prove that, whatever. And I think a lot of people, they get lost, right? They focus on the wrong things, because I see you now and you don't care about the competition. And you've grown so much more since not focusing on the wrong thing, just like me. You know, you can grow in your life and your business as a person when you focus on the right things. Right. So think about the things that you're focusing on, right? And the things that drive you, because that matters, right? It really does matter. Like, it's not just, I always say, it's not just how much money you make, it's how you make it, right? Because there's some people making money the wrong way. And then there's some people making money morally, ethically, and doing it for the right reasons. You know, I'm a true believer that if you make money unethically, you're going to lose all that money.
I agree with you.
You know, I didn't mean to go. I didn't mean to go
babe. That was deep. Podcast 2. I didn't realize how deep we were getting already. But I love you. Thank you for sharing your story. And
it's all about growth, right? We can make, you know, personal mistakes, professional mistakes. You know, we can still learn from those mistakes. I learned a lot from all the things that I've done wrong in business and personal life. Like, you learn from that. You just have to be open to being vulnerable and accountable, right, to those things. And if you are, then you're always going to grow and you're always going to become a better version of yourself. And isn't that what everything is about, right? Like, this isn't just about business and making money. It's about, you know, being a better version of you, whatever that is, whatever makes you happy. You know, you said, you know, I think it was on the last podcast when we were talking about the signature story and like kind of how it started, and you, right, the person behind the Signature Realty brand, and you were motivated by your broker's house, right? This huge 10,000 square foot house, right? And you know, some people might look at that and be like, well, you know, that's kind of shallow, right? That you're just motivated by a house, right? Well, yeah, but that's what motivated you. And that's what got you to where you are now, which is at a totally different level, where you don't put as much value on those type of things anymore. Now, you know, you're the best mom in the world, and you put a ton of value on being Madison's mom and being there for all the things that are going to be important in her life. And there's nothing that we've missed for Madison, right? And I think that's important, like that as you go growing and you get better, whether it's attending a Tony Robbins seminar or listening to a podcast or you just journaling and reflecting, the journey is you getting better wherever you're at. It's not about comparing yourself to Michelle Pais or anybody else. That's the comparison trap, and that doesn't make sense. You look in the mirror, you say, what can I do better? What do I want for my life? What makes me happy? And then move forward, right? And just do better. And that's what mistakes are all about. Mistakes aren't, you know, you're not going to avoid all the mistakes, right? No matter how much you learn from other people, sometimes you just need to learn by screwing up.
Absolutely.
Right? Sometimes.
I feel like you need, I mean, I know that's true with me. Like when I mess up, I don't take it as defeat or a loss. I take it as a learning experience. Like, how am I going to become a better version of myself? What am I going to do better next time? You know, and we're always learning from our mistakes. Always. I mean,
right. I mean, every time you don't get a listing, right? Which is kind of rare, but like when you don't get a listing, you know, we break it down. Right? What happened? What could we have done better? Right. And we've done it before, right? Where we're like, no, this shit's not over. They didn't sign a contract with somebody else. And then you call them back and you've overcome. And then you actually end up with the listing anyway. Yeah. And you were relentless about it. Right. So sometimes that's what it is too. It's not giving up. It's being relentless. And there's not many people that are like that, you know? Yeah. But having that attitude of relentlessness, I think is key. And if there's one thing that you guys can like take away from our podcast, is just that, like pushing yourself to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. That's what this is all about. That's what Signature SIP is about. Listen,
the path was very painful. Mm-hmm. Like that's what no one sees. Everyone sees, you know, this image and like, oh, I want to be her. I want to do what she can do, or, you know, I can do that, or I can do that better. But no, like, there's nothing, I didn't document my journey. And the journey was hard, and it was tough, and there were a lot of mistakes made along the way. I mean, shit, I can write a book. Actually, I did write a book about it. But there is...
And you could still end up good.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right?
And it's
like,
worth
the journey
it.
is going to be hard.
But it's worth it.
Right.
Like, if I knew back then, 20 years ago, or 20-something years ago, like, this is where my life is going to look like in 20 years. First of all, I never thought of it that way. I never thought I'd have the life that I have, that I've always dreamt of it, but I never thought I would actually have it. But the journey itself was very, very difficult. And for those of you that, you know, are looking to, or you're in a rut, or you're thinking of giving up, because I know right now we are in a challenging times with the market and the frustration that everyone's having, I promise you, stick with it. It will get better. Markets will change. Those that are going to leave the business, it's okay, because the way I say it is sometimes less is more. Right now, I feel like in a good market, everyone's selling real estate. Sellers don't need us. Commissions are always being negotiated because it's a seller's quote on market. But when shit hits the fan, and now, you know, the market shifts, sellers more than ever are going to need us. Buyers more than ever are going to need us. And those that stick with
That's
it
when
and
you
stay
need the
with
experts.
Yes, we're going to win. And that's always been my mindset and how I always thought and got through those days. But ultimately, the journey will be worth it. It will be worth it. It's painful. I'm not gonna lie. It was rough. But ultimately, you know.
But what's rougher though? Working a job for 40 years and then, right? Like, think about that.
I've thought about that.
No, I know, but some people are like,
I've thought about that.
It's hard to start a business, right? And it's hard to do everything. You got to pick your hard. You got to pick either this hard or that hard, because everything's hard. It's not easy to have a job and just make money and like not know what the future looks like, or be worried about this or worried about that. That's also hard. Everything is hard, right? I mean, people that live off the government, that shit's hard, right?
Yeah,
like
everything
is hard.
I think it's harder being somebody that is, you know, putting themselves out there. It takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there and to build something, and just, you know.
I don't know.
It's hard.
Being broke is hard.
Being broke is very hard.
Being broke is fucking hard. I remember when I was dead broke and I maxed out my credit cards, and I was. It was rough. Like, I lived day to fucking day to day, and it was not easy. And I had no support, and there was no cheerleading going on, and it was just, like, I remember driving in my piece of shit Toyota Camry, like, water would come into my driver's seat because there was like a hole, and I didn't have the money to fix it. And I would just drive around in my car, like, trying to figure shit out. Like, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to do this? Like, that journey is 100% proof that if you are relentless and you want it and you work on you, and then you take your risks and you don't back down, you can make it. And I'm still going. Like, nothing is easy now, right? It's still hard, but
well, you're not having water coming into your car anymore.
I don't have water coming into my car. No, I don't. A very beautiful car.
But you have different issues. I mean, we all do, right?
Yeah. At every journey, there's something going on, and it's a matter of one thing: gratitude. That's it. Like, if you're grateful every day for what you do have and for what you've done, and you try to be better, that's the most important thing ever. Like, if you don't have gratitude in your life, I don't care how successful you are, how good of a relationship you potentially have, or partner, or anything else, you are not going to be happy. You're not going to be growing. You're not going to be better. You're not going to be in a good mindset place, because the lack of gratitude, right, affects your attitude.
I like that. The lack of gratitude affects your attitude.
Yep.
So practice being grateful, everybody.
Yeah. I mean, that's a mistake a lot of people make, right, is the lack of gratitude, right? It blurs your perspective if you don't do that. and read and learn, about emotional intelligence so you can avoid some of the mistakes that you're making. Because if people just stop doing the shit that's hurting them, it's a net positive right from the get-go. It's not about always doing new things. It's just about stop doing bad things, right? Like it's just don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Well, you stop doing that, that's going to make you better, period. It's not even doing anything new. It's stopping the bad things. And everybody knows the shit that they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. This was good. This was deep. This was very therapeutical for me. And yeah, thanks, babe.
Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and submit your video questions at the email in the description so we can answer your questions. And join us on our next podcast. We have a special guest, Steve Cantor. From Maplewood, New Jersey. Yes. He was the producer of the 24-Hour Flip, and he's going to tell you all the behind-the-scenes stuff from the TV show. Thanks for listening, and subscribe. See you later.